getting 18 to 20 carries a game. Does that feel like a sweet spot for those guys? Is that at the upper end of what you'd want to see them go? Or?
No, I think that's about right. I think, the way we're running the football right now, the offensive line, controlling the line of scrimmage, those guys getting anywhere from 18 to 22 carries. If they can both get that, that's great, but we at least want one of those guys with somewhere in that low 20s and the other guy somewhere, upwards of 15 to 18. But what I think it's been able to do for us, it's obviously been really good for us to keep those guys healthy. I think they're two dynamic players, and it's easy to say, well, why don't we give them the ball 30 times? Well, you give them the ball 30 times too many times, right? Then now you're just adding on additional risk of injury. And I think because both of those guys are so valuable, giving them both opportunities around that 20 carries per game, I think is the sweet spot to keep them healthy and keep them productive.
Yeah, it seems like when they're in that 15 to 20 carry range, are they still pretty fresh, and the other team has been getting hit.
Exactly. I think you've seen it, in our wins when we're able to really get into that 4-minute offense and run it. Either one of those guys is in and they're fresh. And that's something that the defense has a really hard time with, because they haven't been off the field as much as those other guys. And so when we've been able to kind of break up those duties between them, what you're really seeing is two starting running backs playing at any given time in the game.
What does all add to the mix?
Oh, man, Salah's a little bit different. He's a little bit bigger back in stature. He's about 210 pounds, just about 6 foot, and he's got really good top-end speed. So I think his running ability has just been a good change-up. You kind of get Jam, who's like a slasher, right, can do a little bit that way. Hank's physical, right, quick, get a good burst. And then Salah's a little bit bigger and he's a little bit faster. So I think those guys together as a group really complement one another for sure.
Do you feel like the way that you guys, like you just, sort of outlined, do you feel like that's a plan that you can consistently carry on into this next part of the season?
Absolutely. I think it's critical for us to be able to do that. And really in this age of the game, 2024, I think those days of seeing one back get 30 carries a game is pretty slim. Right, because the defensive players are just too fast, too physical, and those guys get worn down. So I think this system for us bodes well to be something we can carry continuously over the course of the season for sure.
How did you feel like the energy from the running back position grew in that last game where you're running option, running fly sweeps, running a lot of different things that you hadn't run in the first 3 games?
I think one thing it really shows is the versatility of our room. Those guys really are all-purpose guys. When you talk about Jam Griffin and Anthony Hankerson, those guys can do everything that we want a back to do in our system. They obviously can run the football really effectively, but one thing that doesn't show up in the stat line is the pass protection. These guys are excellent in pass protection. They're physical. They really can block pretty much any linebacker in the country one-on-one. And then obviously both of them have shown that they can catch the ball too. So those guys are really all-purpose backs, and I think you're really seeing that kind of outlined in this first quarter of the season.
Things are obviously cooking pretty well, but is there an area of the run game that you would still like to see some improvement in?
Oh, 100%. I think that's something we talk about in our room daily is we're doing a really good job, but man, there's still some change out there left to be had.
What might that be?
Yeah, and so I think for my guys, I want to see them continue to break more tackles, right? Second and third level. Want to see him continue to be more consistent, pressing the heels of the O-line in some of our zone schemes. So there's a lot of technical things that can get a lot better. I think they're doing a really good job, but there's still, again, a lot of left out there that we can still do a better job of for sure.
When you talk about breaking tackles at the second level, it's kind of an easy thing to say, right?
Sure.
You want your guys to run more people over. How do you go about coaching that and teaching that, or showing them on film?
I think number one, to kind of ask how you coach it. We do a lot of drills where we're having to set up blocks. I think breaking tackles at the second and third level a lot of times has to do more with not necessarily beating a guy one-on-one, but setting a guy up so you only have to work against half of him, right? And so I think we've been doing a lot of drill work where we're making our first or secondary read, and then you get to the secondary, and then you got to make that guy miss. So we're working a lot with that in Indy, and then just schematically just putting our guys in a position to where the X's say, hey, you should be one-on-one with the safety or one-on-one with the corner. and then again, making that matchup happen and really winning that one-on-one.
When you're talking about setting up blocks like
Yep.
that, how much are you and Coach Devan working together, when he's trying to get guards up to the second level, hit linebackers, or trying
Sure.
to get running backs through?
Well, yeah, I mean, Coach Devan and I work very closely together, and we talk a lot about, hey, making sure that our O-line is working on the same track as the back. And so, especially in the zone scheme, right? And obviously, we're kind of majoring in some zone stuff. So really getting those guys, basically everybody attacking on the same angle is critical to help those guys set those blocks up.
How do you think those guys have fared in those option looks against Purdue? And it's not something that everybody's running. I'm sure it takes some patience on their end.
Yeah, I think it's, again, like you said, I don't think defenses see it as much as we've been running it. And, Giovanni McCoy has been really good at it. He has a great feel for it. I've been around Giovanni, obviously, the last couple of years with him at Idaho, and I was even really surprised on how well he runs that play, how well he sees it, and how good of decisions he's making in the speed option game. But I definitely think it's something that's tough for defenses to defend because they just don't see it a lot. And with all the stuff we're doing on offense, I think it puts a lot of stress on those defensive ends.
When you say you're surprised that Giovanni's running it so well, is that just because he wasn't running it at Idaho? Is it something that's kind of unnatural?
Well, we just didn't really major in it, and so we kind of dabbled in it a little bit, and he was okay at it, right? Because he's athletic and he can run, but just the decision making is what I've been really impressed with him. He's been really making great decisions. I don't think he's been wrong yet on our option play. Cross my fingers for this weekend if we see any of that stuff. But again, I think he's done a really good job with that for sure.
You talked about the health of, Jam and Hank. How beneficial was it to have this bye week? Obviously, at this college level, they haven't had this number of carries this
Sure.
early in the season. How beneficial was it to get them off their feet a little bit?
Yeah, it was huge. I think more than anything, Coach Bray did a really nice job setting up our bye week to where we could get really meaningful and deliberate work without all the contact. We had orange jerseys on those guys last week. They weren't really getting touched in our thud tempo stuff. It was all tag tempo on them. So I think it gives them an opportunity to just, any like nagging things they might have had, shoulders, things like that, maybe upper body, right? Maybe the ribs were a little sore. That stuff really got a chance to calm down. And you saw it Sunday. Those guys were flying around full speed on Sunday, and it carried over today as well.
Where's Cornell Hatcher on getting on the field? Is there just not enough carries at this point?
Yeah, really for freshmen, if they're not going to see significant time and I can save a year, I'd much rather save a year because Cornell has some really good ability. And what's awesome about Cornell is he's really owned his role that he has. He's really the main running back on scout team. Right now with Deontay a little bit banged up, we have Sala and Jake Reichel kind of helping him down there, but those guys are kind of splitting it where he's really leading it. And I think he's taken ownership of that, and you see it when he gets a chance to do our young guy scrimmages on Sundays. He's really improved even from fall camp. So even though, the room's a little bit crowded, if we got banged up at all, I would feel very confident bringing him up, and I think he'd be able to handle it pretty well too.
We talked about Jake Reichel a lot in fall camp and even into the spring. We haven't seen a ton of carries from him.
Sure.
Just kind of what's he been doing behind the scenes to continue to push specifically Saladin for those third group reps?
Yeah, I think what you see with Jake is he's very good in situational football. He's had a few carries this season, and they've really been in meaningful moments. The most recent, really, San Diego State, he converts a 4th and 1. But that's his skill set, right? He's a downhill physical runner, and he's going to continue to work. Like, he's not one of those guys that says, well, I'm not getting a lot of carries. Right? He's preparing himself to be the starter every week. And so he knows whenever his opportunity comes, he'll be ready. And I have no qualms or there's nothing nervous about putting him in the football game.
So the option was kind of game plan specific to Purdue, at least we've talked about that a little bit. Did it go so well that you're thinking maybe that needs to be a permanent part of the menu?
Yeah, I think that's just part of our offense. The option game, we've shown a little bit of it before in previous games. I know we majored in a little bit against Purdue is just really what they gave us. But I think it's part of our offense, just like any other piece. We're going to take what they give us, right? And if they're going to give us speed option, great, we'll run it. If they take it away, we'll run plenty of other things. So I think it's, to answer your question shortly, it's part of our offense, and it's just situational when we want to use it.
Sorry if I missed this. It came in a minute late.
That's okay.
How do you think Jam and Hank have kind of fared as pass blockers? What do you still want to
Oh,
see
they're
from
excellent.
them?
Yeah, that's one thing that I said earlier. Those two guys are excellent in pass pro. Sometimes with guys that are a little bit shorter in stature, you worry about the matchups against backers, but because they're so fast, because they're so physical, it hasn't been an issue at all. We talk about it's a physics problem, right? How much force are you producing? And with those guys' mass and their acceleration, they're able to, really, like I said, compete with any linebackers in the country.
What have you seen from Salah so far, and where do you feel like his game can really grow?
What you see with Salah is the pure athleticism. He's very fluid, very natural. Like I said, he's got really good top-end speed. Where he can continue to grow is in the nuance of the game, right? Pass protection. I think he catches the ball well, but understanding where he fits in the pass concepts is where he can really improve. And I think that's what you'll see over the kind of the last 2/3 of this season is, hopefully getting him more opportunities to show he can really do that stuff. But really, that's an area where Jam and Hank are significantly better than him right now, is in pass protection, both from the understanding and then the physicality piece. But Saladin's catching up pretty quick.
What have you seen from Colorado State's defense?
They're a disciplined defense. They're a gap control, disciplined defense. They're not super complex in terms of their scheme, but I think it allows them to play fast and just fly around. So I think you're going to see a group that's disciplined, a group that's going to be, high motor guys, trying to get from sideline to sideline on Saturday for sure.